Hey, Rich. How are you?
Hi there, Rich Nicholson.
Hey, good morning.
Good to meet you. Glad to be here.
Well, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for taking some time out today. You know, one of the reasons that Human Resources has us doing what we do, training and facilitating, is because leaders, whether it's a leader in production or office environments, with small, intermediate, and large companies, want to make sure that we're on track to satisfy the customer needs. Right? Now, just let me ask you a question about customers. Customer satisfaction is very important, right?
Yes.
Okay. What is more important, perhaps, than customer satisfaction?
Wow.
What do you think?
Well, they talk about the customers a lot, talk about the shareholders a lot.
Okay.
And for me, you know, I'm concerned about the workforce, about my direct reports as well.
Okay.
But I don't know if anyone's more important.
Okay, they have a different kind of importance, right? And you're absolutely correct, Rich, is that if we do not satisfy our customer, are we going to retain that customer?
Probably not.
Okay, so to get back to the question, what's more important than customer satisfaction is customer retention.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I knew that you knew that, right?
Yeah.
It's just that there are so many components to building an environment of collaboration. What we're going to do is we're going to talk for a few minutes because this is just an orientation. I know that you called me in to find out how we can train and facilitate in your department.
Yeah.
Okay, and you build C-17s, and we're in Long Beach, California.
Yeah.
It's the absolute best cargo plane in the world. So when we think about building a collaborative team environment, let's talk about 5 major components: task and relationships, trust, clear roles and responsibilities, open communication, and diversity. Right? When you think about those components at work, and I know that you've done quite a bit of work in the production environment as well as the office.
Right.
Which one of these, when you think about the customer's common purpose and your team's common purpose, which one of these would be the highest priority for you?
You know, when I look at those, I've never seen those together on one page before. They are all important.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had different training on different of the subsections there. Purpose, obviously, super critical. There's issues with trust lately. And I think there's issues with trust that impact the communication and the relationships that people have. And it seems like if we're not trusting, we're not talking, we're not being honest, and we're not achieving the purpose. So, you know, purpose is important, but without trust, I'm not sure the job can get done.
Okay, Rich, thanks. Thanks for your input, and you're absolutely correct, is that many books and many companies emphasize the trust component. Because if you don't have trust, whether at home or whether in the work environment, and many of these, you know, you think about it, many of these components also work in your private life, right? So in this environment here, if trust is number one and common purpose, tell me what you think about the common purpose and the impact that has on your teams delivering a great product to the Air Force.
Well, our purpose is to get our part of the job done, our part of the build or our office statement of work complete, and get it handed off to the next person. That's what our main purpose is, right in our media work group. But I also see that there's like a company purpose. There's a C-17 purpose with the Air Force. And we play a part in it, but I'm not sure everyone really sees how they tie into the big purpose.
Okay, very good, thank you. You know, one of the things that we have found, Rich, and statistics prove it out, the Gallup organization does many polls on not only employee involvement, when it comes to performance, etc. And I'm going to round numbers up, less than 80% of individuals in any organization do not fully use their strengths, right? Now, if you'll do me a favor, raise your hand for a moment. Okay. You've got skills, talents, abilities, experience, and education, whether it's formal or informal. Okay, you can put your hands out, right?
Yeah.
But I want you to think about that. Think about that metaphor. No one can take that away from you. No one can take that away from you as a leader, but no one can take it away from your employees as well. And so when you think about performance, and you think about your customer, and all of you having a common purpose, companies and organizations will pay for value. They will pay you handsomely for value. Now I know, because we've worked together in the past, not only in the classroom, but also in production and office environments, I know as a leader, I know one of your values, your core values, is to lead by example.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, now how has that worked for you, leading by example, when it comes to these components?
Well, for me, leading by example is rolling up your sleeves, getting out with the people,
Right.
finding out what their issues and obstacles are, and working with integrity, communicating to them what you would want to know if you were in their shoes, stepping in their shoes. I think it works. I think leading by example is very transparent. I think it makes you real and connects with the people. A lot of managers don't do that, and I think they have some issues and problems, but I'm a believer in that. And I can already see, if I would look at these categories and kind of revisit leading these 5 by example, I can already feel clarity coming from this conversation just in the couple of minutes we've talked. Maybe it's just highlighting what matters most for a manager.
Okay, all right, thank you for that comment, Rich. One of the other things that I want to discuss at a macro level is that what a lot of people don't understand is that the mind works in this fashion, very simply, right? When we hear a word, we see a picture, and then immediately there's an emotion behind it, right? Word, picture, emotion. And then after all that happens in a nanosecond, in a flash, then some kind of behavior is what a person exhibits. So when I talk about trust, because that's your number one issue right now, or that's what you feel, what picture comes to mind when I just say trust?
Well, the first picture that came to mind is sometimes we have a lot of emotions around here first, before those other things you talked about. There's schedule pressure, there's cost pressure, there's just capability, and so a lot of times things get real emotional. So when I think of trust is being able to believe someone will follow through with what they say. They have credibility. They're not going to stab you in the back. They're going to have your back and be there for you. That's what I think trust is. But I think sometimes we get very emotional because we're not meeting the expectations right then and there, and then everything goes out the window.
Okay, thank you for that, Rich. Now, let me ask you a different question. When you think about trust, and I agree with your response, what do you think your customer, the Air Force customer, who flies and buys these C-17 airplanes, what do you think they think about trust in you and your production teams?
I think that they have to trust that we're going to give them a complete, safe product.
Right.
On time, good quality, but most of all, it's safe. Because those airplanes, they fly with people on them and everything. And if you're leaving wrenches and screwdrivers inside, if you don't trust your people, that they have their heart in it, that they're going to really take it to task, for the customer, trust could be a whole new level.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Rich. Now, let me ask you one other question about communication, because what I heard you say, I believe, is that if you don't have the trust issue ironed out and modeled out, it has no communication or closed communication. How, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being optimal and 1, we really need help, where is the communication with your teams right now?
I would say depending on some of the factors, it could be as poor as 2 or 3, and in some cases it might be 7 or 8, or even 10 where we do well.
Yes.
But it's a wide range. It's very random.
Okay, so it depends on the situation.
It depends on the situation, on the person. It's not always good. That's an area of risk for sure.
Okay.
I can see that now, that's a very risky area.
Okay. So let me ask you a question in the macro sense.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to come in, and by the way, we know that these components are the foundation to building a collaborative team environment and finding a purpose, right? If we were to come in and train and facilitate all of your teams, how do you think the outcome would be? Would they be open? Are they receptive to change? Because, you know, change has to happen in order to become better.
If you had something that enabled the workforce to learn and apply this to the job,
Yes.
where it builds their skills, it would be very, very valuable. It would be very value added, not only for the workers, but for the managers as well. Sometimes the managers, they don't always have these skills. Probably more don't have them than do have them. And if these 5 areas were understood and used, applied,
Yes.
I think that would be tremendous. I think that could build the trust, open up the communication, and eliminate a lot of the risk that we have right now.
Okay. Now let me ask you a different question, and thanks for that response, Rich. Now you're a director of an entire department that not only builds the C-17, but you also interface with your Air Force customer.
Mm-hmm.
Now let me ask you about your other cohorts, the other leaders that are your partners in building the C-17. Do you think they would be open to this?
Some people walk the talk, some people don't.
Yes.
I think it's really hard not to say this is not important.
Yes.
And I think as long as they understand that it's for the workforce,
yes.
And that we would be showing them what the workforce would be going through. Some people have egos and might feel a little threatened, but if we would let them know the importance of this for the workforce, how it makes their job easier and more accurate, and that we want them to understand the material so that they can reinforce it. Right. Maybe even train it themselves, but definitely follow up. I mean, this has to be lived day to day. And we've talked about this before. But we've never had a process in place where we actually practice it day to day. I think that would be tremendous for the entire management team. Everybody actually should go through this. Okay. Maybe it's a couple different levels or something like that, but we get away from this, and this has always been important and always will be important, and I think it's good timing to get back into this where we are in the program. Okay, very good. So you think, in summary, then you think that finding a common purpose by building a collaborative team environment, and that's basically helping people work together. You know, one of the things that we have also found, Rich, is that we are perfect experts in working in silos. Right. And that means that we are not collaborating. So by just these 5 components, and finding a common purpose to satisfy your customer, because it's really not about us. Right. It's about your customer. Right. And sustainability. I think we lose sight of the customer. I think we get so wrapped up down and in our daily work, we lose sight of the external customer. Right. And we've learned about them before, but we get distracted internally and get wrapped around our own axle, and opening up the blinders again, opening up that aperture to get back to a common purpose and know where you fit, I think is critical. And when you said working in silos, I think the managers, they try to do this anyway. It's kind of by default, and they might not really be thinking about it. But if you're not collaborating with some common purpose, then it can be miserable. You can really have a miserable environment that you're working in. Okay, thank you. Yeah. You know, to end this session, Rich, what other topics, if any, can you think about right now, other than these, that would help you and your department and then the program overall? Are there any other topics that are hot that you've been thinking about? I've been thinking about just being in meetings that are a waste of time. Okay. Just status meetings, it's required to go there, and we don't make any decisions, and everyone's defensive, because it's more like they're giving a status and what did you do wrong, like that, and people are checked out and they just can't wait to get out of the meeting to get back to work, and we just have too many meetings. That would be an area where we could use a lot of help.
Okay, so that would be module 6. This is module 14, by the way, building a collaborative team environment. The module on meetings, and it's interesting that you say that, because we have 24 hours in a day, and we typically work 40 to 50 hours as managers and directors of employees and departments. And module 6 does cover holding effective meetings.
Right.
And one of the components of meetings is that at least 50% of all meetings are time wasters.
Right.
So you just expressed that to me, so we could also help you with that.
Another area is we have union and non-union.
Oh, I see, okay.
And we have multiple unions. Do you have experience yourself working in the union environment, or because sometimes they're very resistant to anything we bring to them?
Exactly. I have a lot of experience, 10 years plus with the Boeing company. The Boeing company is the largest company in the world that makes machines that fly in outer space and here in our space. But yeah, all right, so you know what? Thank you so much for this orientation. I was requested to come in and to find out, checking the pulse a little bit about where the need was. So any other final questions or comments before we end it?
I think this covers about everything. I'm looking forward to maybe having more conversations and talking to other people about this, but I like where it's going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rich, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Macias.
Yes, all right.
And it's good to see you.
Okay, bye-bye.